Stop shrinking. Why your whole self is your greatest asset. I recently had the honor of sitting down with Toyette Hall, and I need to tell you something about this woman. Toyette is not just surviving, she is rewriting the narrative for Black women, mothers, and professionals who have been told their stories are too messy, too complicated, too much. She is quietly reshaping how we see ourselves in spaces that were never designed for us. And what she shared with me, it set something on fire inside me that I need to pass on to you today. Because here's the thing, we live in a world that constantly asks us to edit ourselves, tone it down, code switch, smile more but not too much, be strong but not intimidating, be soft but not weak, be professional, which somehow always means be less of who you actually are. And if you are a Black woman, if you became a mom at 17 like Toyette did, if your path did not look like the brochure, then the world hands you an even longer list of things you are supposed to apologize for, hide, or fix before you are allowed to take up space. But what if the very thing you have been taught to shrink is actually your greatest asset? What if your story, your voice, your scars, your softness, your strength, the parts of you that do not fit neatly into someone else's box, what if that is not the problem? What if that is the power? That is what Toyette Hall reminded me of. And that is what I want us to sit with today. Your story is your power. Being yourself is your greatest set. Let me say that again slower because I need you to feel this. Your story is your power. Being yourself is your greatest asset, not the polished version, not the LinkedIn bio that leaves out the hard parts, not the version that makes other people comfortable, the real you, the whole you, the you that has lived through things, learned things, survived things, and is still here, still standing, still dreaming. Toyette became a mom at 17. She did not have the luxury of a perfect timeline or a safety net that let her stumble quietly. She had to figure it out in real time with real consequences and real love driving every decision. And instead of letting that define her as less than, she let it deepen her. She helped her son follow his dreams. She built a life. She became a woman of standards, not because she was perfect, but because she refused to shrink. And here's what I learned from her story and from so many others like hers. You do not have to be perfect to be worthy, successful, or respected. Let me say that one more time for the people in the back and for the voice in your head that keeps telling you you are not ready yet. You do not have to be perfect to be worthy, successful, or respected. Becoming a mom at 17, facing struggle early, taking the non traditional route, none of that disqualifies you. It deepens you. The journey, the roller coaster, that is what makes your leadership, your brand, your voice real. Being yourself means owning your story instead of shrinking from it. And I know some of you are sitting there thinking, but Leanne, you do not understand. My story is messy. My path is crooked. I do not have the credentials, the degree, the perfect background. If I show up as myself, people will not take me seriously. But let me tell you about three women who proved that wrong in the most powerful way possible. First, Bozoma St. John. Boz walked into rooms at PepsiCo, Apple, Uber, Netflix, rooms that were not built for Black women, and she refused to disappear. She immigrated from Ghana to the United States as a child and often felt like an outsider. Those early experiences shaped her decision later in life. If she was going to do the work, she would not leave pieces of herself at the door. She wore her bright African inspired prints. She spoke openly about her Ghanaian heritage. She showed up as Boz, not as some watered down version designed to make white executives comfortable. And you know what happened? She became one of the most visible, most respected marketing leaders in the world, not in spite of her authenticity, because of it. Harvard Business School wrote an entire study about her, not just for her strategy, but for her leadership style rooted in being herself. She redefined what power looks like, and she did it by refusing to leave pieces of herself at the door. She used her life experiences and cultural lens to shape campaigns that felt genuinely connected to diverse audiences rather than generic marketing. She spoke publicly about loss, resilience, and womanhood, allowing colleagues and audiences to see her as a full human being rather than just a title. She built a strong personal brand that transcends any one company, giving her leverage, mobility, and influence. And she inspired countless young Black professionals, especially Black women, to embrace their full identity at work. Her visibility and success show that authenticity and excellence are not opposites, they fuel each other. Then there is Tabitha Brown. Tabitha spent years as a struggling actress, working odd jobs, facing rejection after rejection. She dealt with serious health issues that left her nearly bedridden and unsure of what came next. After facing health challenges that forced her to reconsider her lifestyle and career, she switched to a vegan diet and slowly started documenting her journey. She did not script a brand, she shared her life. And instead of curating some perfect influencer persona, she started posting simple, unpolished videos from her kitchen, cooking vegan meals, sharing her faith, speaking in her natural Southern accent with phrases like that, and that is your business. She did not try to be anyone else. She just showed up as herself, warm, nurturing, honest, soft. She led with nurturing energy, prayer, humor, and honesty about her struggles. She consistently showed vulnerability and joy, even when she did not have the perfect background, lighting, or Hollywood success. And millions of people said, yes, we need this. Her TikTok and Instagram presence exploded, gaining millions of followers drawn precisely to her authenticity. She built a brand, a book deal, television projects, a whole business by being exactly who she is. She landed major brand partnerships and effectively built a multi stream business as herself. She became known as a comforting, affirming voice for many Black women, parents, and professionals seeking softness and emotional safety. Her success validates something we have been told is not valuable: soft, nurturing, deeply personal Black womanhood. Turns out it is powerful and it is profitable. People connected with her honesty about pain, healing, faith, and family. And that connection grew into a powerful platform. She continues to center kindness, love, and spiritual grounding in all her content. Tabitha's rise demonstrates that you can build a thriving brand and business without pretending, over curating, or hardening yourself to fit someone else's mold. And then there is Marseille Martin. At 14 years old, Marseille became the youngest executive producer in Hollywood history with the film Little. She did not wait for permission. She did not tone down her ideas to make them more marketable. She started on the show Blackish at a young age. And rather than just enjoying the spotlight, she watched the adults behind the camera and imagined her own projects. When she got the opportunity, she did not pitch a safe or generic story. She leaned into her natural humor and imagination and brought that fully into the room. She pitched a movie based on her sensibilities, her humor, her perspective as a Black girl. And she insisted on staying involved behind the scenes, working alongside adults as a creative equal. She spoke openly in interviews about wanting to tell stories that center Black girls in joyful, magical, and humorous ways, not just trauma. She founded her own production company focused on telling authentic stories about Black youth and families. She gained more creative leverage for future projects, setting up her production company focused on stories from her authentic point of view. She became a role model for young Black creatives, showing that you do not have to wait until you are older or shrink your ideas to take up space. She proved that age, background, expectations, none of that has to dictate your lane. When you trust your own voice and ideas, you create opportunity for yourself and open doors for everyone watching. She won multiple NACP Image Awards and broader recognition as a young mogul in the making. By trusting her own voice and ideas, she created opportunity for herself and opened doors for more authentic, joyful Black representation on screen. Bazoma, Tabitha, Marseille, three different industries, three different journeys, one common thread. They showed up as themselves fully, unapologetically, and the world made room. But here's the part that Toyette Hall really drove home for me. And I think this is the piece we miss sometimes when we talk about authenticity. Your authenticity gives others permission to be themselves too. When you stand in your standards, your boundaries, your truth, especially as a Black professional, business owner, or parent, you quietly tell everyone watching you are allowed to be real here. That is how we change workplaces, families, communities. One person choosing to show up as their full self. Think about that. Every time you code switch a little less, every time you share the real story instead of the highlight reel, every time you set a boundary without apologizing, every time you affirm your child's dream, even when it does not look like what you imagined, you are not just changing your life, you are giving someone else permission to breathe. And I know this is not easy. I know the world has trained us, especially as Black women, to believe that survival means shape shifting, that safety means smallness, that success means silence about the hard parts. But Toyette's story and the stories of so many women like her tell us something different. They tell us that the roller coaster, the messy middle, the non traditional path, that is not the thing you overcome to finally be yourself. That is the thing that makes you you. And you is exactly who the world needs. So here is what I want you to do. Not someday, not when you feel ready today. Stop apologizing for your story. Make a decision right now to stop leading with shame about your past. Whether it is becoming a parent young, starting over, not following a perfect path, whatever it is, write down 3 ways your story has made you stronger and start introducing yourself from that place of strength. Now, I am sorry I do not have this credential, but here's what I have learned. Here is what I have survived. Here is what I bring. Second, show up as yourself in one concrete way this week. In your job, speak up in your authentic voice in one meeting instead of code switching the entire time. In your business, share a real piece of your journey with your audience or clients, not just the highlight reel. As a parent, affirm your child's dreams out loud, even if the path looks different from what you imagined, just like Toyette did with her son. And third, set one standard that protects your authentic self. Decide on one boundary that keeps you from shrinking. Maybe it is no longer accepting roles or clients that require you to be someone you are not. Maybe it is refusing relationships where you must downplay your light. Then honor that standard for the next 30 days and watch what shifts. Because the world does not need another version of you that fits into someone else's box. The world needs the version of you that is messy and magical and real and resilient and soft and strong and still figuring it out. That version, that is the one that changes everything. That is the one that opens doors. That is the one that gives someone else permission to breathe. That is the one that rewrites the narrative. So stop shrinking, stop apologizing, stop waiting for permission. Show up whole, unapologetically today because your story is your power and being yourself, that is your greatest asset.